KYWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Friday, December 2nd. Good morning. I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 0 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ontario's big city mayors, including Mark Sutcliffe, will be meeting today, and it comes as tensions rise between municipalities and the province over the financial impacts of the province's new housing bill. Our Kevin Meisner has the details.
There are major concerns about the Ford government's so-called More Homes Built Faster bill, with several city councils questioning the goal. The big city mayors will discuss how they can work with the province on housing. Senior staff in several cities say Bill 23 does absolutely nothing to address affordability, which many agree is the real issue with housing in the province. The bill would also reduce or cut development fees collected by municipalities, which would severely affect the budgets of local councils and potentially leave local taxpayers on the hook. The big city mayors do have influence since their municipalities represent nearly 70% of Ontario's population. Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time 10:02. Now with a look at your weather for the weekend. Let's get the latest from our City News meteorologist, Jill Taylor.
We'll climb to a guaranteed high 4 degrees today. The average high is 0 and quite mild overnight. The low near +1. The average low is -8 and very mild on Saturday, all the way up to 8 degrees, but a gusty southwest wind. And we will have on and off rain through the day Saturday. Sunday looks good though. Sun and cloud just cooler at 0. For today, the guaranteed high +4.
Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, partly cloudy and 0 degrees. Police are asking you to keep an eye on your vehicles. This comes as car thefts are on the rise and are happening in broad daylight. They say that thieves are taking advantage of unattended cars in parking lots, especially as more people are out Christmas shopping. Now, fewer newer models are being targeted, like Honda CR-Vs, Acuras, Jeep Grand Cherokees, and Ford F-150s, as well as cars with push-start ignitions. Over 1,100 cars have been reported stolen so far this year. Now, police say you can use a steering wheel lock, or if you're at home, install motion sensor lights or park your car in your garage to prevent potential car thefts. Now, some news on the labor market this morning, showing some strength despite rapidly rising interest rates this year. The economy added another 10,000 jobs last month, and the unemployment rate fell slightly to 5.1%. Here's Mike Apple with the latest.
The Bank of Canada's efforts to cool the labor market still not showing too much of an effect, at least not in the November numbers, with Stats Canada data pointing to an additional 10,000 jobs added. That was on top of the 108,000 in October. The unemployment rate actually came down 0.1% to 5.1%, with employment up in several industries. The labor market has remained remarkably strong despite signs of an overall economic slowdown, and wage growth continues to be on the move higher, with wages up 5.6%, the sixth consecutive month above the 5% growth rate, something the Bank of Canada has specifically red flagged in the fight against inflation. The Bank of Canada expected to deliver its 7th interest rate increase next Wednesday. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Apple.
And I'm Pirushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. It is Friday, everybody. We made it. It's December the 2nd. What a busy week we have had here at the City News newsroom, bringing all that news to you. You'll want to stay with us. Well, you'll want to stay with us, of course, all day. You'll definitely want to be here after the 10:30 news. We have, what's better than one former mayor? It's two former mayors. Mayor Bob Chiarelli is going to join us, as well as former Mayor Larry O'Brien. We're going to be talking about the LRT. We're going to ask these gentlemen what they think about the report that has come down. We're going to spend a whole half hour with them. You'll definitely want to be here for that. Speaking about the LRT, I wanted to get the thoughts of former City Councillor Mathieu Fleury. Hello, Mathieu. Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. And we know that obviously you decided not to seek re-election this time. How have you been spending the last 10 days or so, Matthew?
It's too early to say that I've had a break. I've helped Stephanie and a number of folks at City Hall transition appropriately, and then I actually had some stuff to catch up on at the home. So
Right.
Not a break yet, but looking forward. We're already in December, and Christmas is coming. I have some shopping to do and some decorations to do around the home.
Well, and you have a beautiful young family, so enjoy that time for sure. I'm sure you took time away this week, though, to take a look at that
I did.
LRT inquiry report. What are your initial reactions, Matthew?
We were worried when the inquiry was started because the judge or the commissioner had political alignment in the past with working for Flaherty and so on. But when I look at the report, I have to commend the work of that entire team. It's comprehensive. It brings the facts. It details the facts. It doesn't just look at the city. It doesn't just look at RTG. It looks at the complete picture from the process to contract signing to the construction and the lack of integration of some of the sub-trades to the testing and commissioning, to the day of launch, to the derailments, to the beginning of the inquiry. So it's an exhaustive document of over 600 pages, and the recommendations are very clear. There's 103 recommendations, a lot for the city, a lot of elements, and there's a couple of recommendations that really surprised me and not understanding that they're not resolved yet. We've had derailments. We know there's wheels and track issues, and yet they're still not resolved. The commissioner had to write it as a recommendation saying, following the derailment, the Transport Safety Board wanted to make sure that these elements were resolved for safety reasons, and still they're not. So there's a number of takeaways for all stakeholders, frankly, and it presents the picture of what I've had to live as a local councillor who's seen through the construction with having Lee's, Ottawa, and Rideau Station in my ward, and trying to get information for key stakeholders, University of Ottawa, the Rideau Centre, and others. And it was so difficult, always under the veil of, oh, well, this is a legal matter. We don't have the legal documents. We can't provide that information. So I wasn't privy to the details. I couldn't share that with with important stakeholders. So you now see how challenging it was for members of council broadly to get information on this project.
Well, and Matthew, when I think about the past, obviously, number of years that this has been going on, we have to layer on that sinkhole. Did that sinkhole keep you up at night, Matthew?
Oh, it sure did. Yeah, it sure did. I remember I was at council on a Wednesday morning. The sinkhole happened at 9:34. Council starts at 10 a.m. and right then and there, I knew we were dealing with something bigger than a simple, a small construction project issue. It was massive. It impacted all the businesses along Rideau Street, Rideau Centre, to name the largest stakeholder there, and lasted for weeks and months. And today how impactful that was on the delays and subsequent conflicts between RTG and the city.
Mm-hmm. When you look back on it and you've read this report and you've gone through everything and you look back, are there any regrets that you have? I asked the same question of former city councillor Diane Deans. Are there any regrets, Matthew, that you have?
Yeah, I mean, know that I was always trying to get the information to be able to share it with my community and stakeholders. What's very clear now is that the testing and commissioning phases were chaotic. And the information that we had at council prior to the opening in September was inaccurate. So we could have used different methods to ensure that there'd be public updates. What happened is that the information we were getting and what the public was getting through the construction period and ahead of the opening was really communication spin on progress rather than actual factual, here we have delays here's what's happened, here are the risks. Like, we weren't getting comprehensive, and the commissioner speaks to that, the role of oversight of council and not getting filtered information that that spins in a positive favor rather than presenting the real facts and options for go forward. It's obvious, and to respond to your question, it's obvious that the opening should not have happened in September 2019. We should have had proper testing and commissioning, making sure that all the criteria were met to the percentage and expectations that were set to the public, for the public's interest and to council.
So we know a lot of the players that are still, being talked about in terms of this project are no longer employed. We know, John Manconi, for instance, he retired. And we know, of course, that Mr. Kanellakis decided that on Monday, I believe, that he was going to resign from his position. There was a memo that's been talked about a lot that was to go to council. Mr. Manconi drafted that memo. It was not permitted to go to council. How do you feel about that particular piece of the puzzle?
I mean, that the commissioner and expresses well my thoughts, which is, we were misled. We didn't have the appropriate information, which didn't allow us to make the appropriate decisions, look at options, and do our function of oversight as council. So, the memo is kind of the focus. It is, but it's even broader than that, right? How the information was not shared, how the information was not available to members of council, and ultimately how everything was rushed to that opening date in September. And we regret
the two fatal accidents here in recent years. The city is still on edge in terms of safety of the system. Not that those happened in terms of LRT or anything like that, but there's still that overwhelming, will I get where I'm going safely? So I asked you about Mr. Kanellakis. I asked you about Mr. Manconi. Let's turn our sights to the political side of this. We know, of course, Mayor Watson decided on December the 10th, 2021, that he would not seek re-election. We know that Mr. Alan Hubley decided that he would seek re-election. What do you think in terms of Alan Hubley? Do you think Alan Hubley should step down?
Alan's testimony at the commission and the issues with the WhatsApp group or the misleading information and so on was public. It was made public well before the election cycle, I believe, in the month of June and July. So his community knew that he was chair of transit. His community knew that he was in possession of information. And he won with a small margin, right? A pretty significant vote split in that ward. So I think the focus now is, it's for him to explain to his community why he continues to be legitimately in office, and further, it's to the next councillor, this council and mayor to look at. I think residents of Ottawa want to make sure that the next leadership on the Transit Commission and at council and different roles and responsibilities are not attached to some of those historic failures.
Appreciate your time so much, Mathieu. Thank you so much. Mathieu Fleury joining us today, former city councillor. Stay in touch. There's going to be lots to chat about, Mathieu. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Just after the 10:30 news today, we're going to have former Mayor Bob Chiarelli and former Mayor Larry O'Brien join us to talk about the LRT report. They're going to be here together. It's going to be a very, very important discussion. We have lots for you today, everybody. Just stay right where you are on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hey, I'm Ash Ravens. I'm a singer-songwriter in Ottawa, Canada. I'm performing this week on Encore Ottawa 3, so please be sure to tune in and hope you enjoy it.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Blood Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together, we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together, we can make Canada a better place.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. MAD Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Food.
All things LRT. First of all, we wanted to spend some time today with a number of other guests, and that's Micheline Laprade, Chair of Bereaved Families of Ontario for the Ottawa region. Hello, Micheline. Hello, Micheline.
Good morning.
Micheline, I understand you have a very important event coming up this weekend.
That's correct, Sam. As you know, you and I have spoken before, but BFO has been around for over 40 years providing support to people that are grieving the loss of a loved one in the Ottawa community. And this weekend on Sunday, we are holding our candlelight event. It's a memorial event for those that have lost a loved one, and it gives them the time to, before the Christmas holidays, to kind of focus on the loss of their loved one. Mm-hmm. And this event is being held at the Beechwood Cemetery in the Sacred Hall, and the doors will open at 4 o'clock, and the event will start at 5. It is a candlelight event. People can register up to the end of the day today, probably around 3, 4 o'clock, and then they can register at the door if they haven't done so. But BFO offers a number of programs to the grieving community, and all too often, the grievers are kind of the silent minority. A lot of the charities and foundations in Ottawa give to research, cancer research, mental health, but very little in our community is done for those that are left behind grieving the loss of their loved ones. And that's come very clearly from the participants of our program, that there is nothing or very little available to them.
And Micheline, you know, this has been such a time of loss in our community and, well, globally. There's just so much loss that's happened during the pandemic, and we weren't able in many ways to grieve like society normally grieves, you know, in terms of funerals and wakes. How would you think that's affected the people that you're serving?
Well, that's a good point, Sam. BFO's participants numbers have increased substantially because a lot of the people that lost a loved one during COVID are now starting to do the celebrations of life, and their grief is all resurfacing now because they're just getting to it now. Mm-hmm. And we've done a little bit of statistics, and roughly in the Ottawa area, there's been about 8,000 deaths, and our numbers have showed that 1 out of 10 families have come to BFO for some kind of support.
Wow. Wow, that's significant.
Again, our numbers are increasing. We're basically a volunteer-based charity in the Ottawa area. We have 2 staff members, and the rest of our volunteers are all volunteers. Our facilitators are volunteers that have gone through a training program. So we've received very little funding from the government, little to no funding. Mm-hmm. And again, I stress that the grievers are left behind, and a lot of them now are starting to develop mental health issues, which wasn't on the radar before.
For sure. Micheline, I'm really grateful you would spend time, and I'm sending you all the best for this special Candlelight Remembrance event at Beechwood on Sunday. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam. And I just want to add one little thing, is that our guest speaker on Sunday is Catherine Belanger, who is the wife of Maurice Belanger, right, who was a member of the Liberal Party of Canada and represented Ottawa-Vanier in the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. So she'll be talking about her loss as our guest speaker.
No, and it's definitely Maurice is missed every day. He was such a force here for good in this community and across the country. Thanks so much for sharing, Micheline.
Thank you for having us.
Micheline Laprade spending time with us today, Chair of Bereaved Families of Ontario, Ottawa region. You can find out more about that Candlelight Remembrance event at Beechwood on their website. We wanted to spend a little time talking about something different today, and that is with Lori Fox, Campaign Director at Willpower. Hello, Lori.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Lori. As you may know, when I'm not here on at City News, I am a fundraising strategist and work with a lot of clients across the country. And my social media was blowing up on Tuesday about some fascinating, incredible news that's come out of the Winnipeg Foundation. Share the good news with us.
Yeah, we all heard the great news. A historic gift, $500 million was left in a will to the Winnipeg Foundation.
Which is unbelievable. Can you tell us a little bit about this incredible lady?
Yeah, so it's a gift to the Winnipeg Foundation, and I know this is coming from a business leader in the community. Certainly, if the Winnipeg Community Foundation would be happy to, I'm sure, speak a little bit more about the donor and how the donor was involved in the community and the Winnipeg Foundation.
And, Lori, it's really incredible, when you think about, people leaving a gift in their will. I mean, some people can leave a gift in their will and it's $500 and that can still impact a charity. Some people can leave more, but I think the message really, it doesn't matter the size of the gift. It's so important to think about this type of thing when you're preparing your estate. And many people do that at this time of the year.
Well, that's just it. And that's what I love about this gift. It's coming from a business leader in the community, but I hope everybody realizes that this is something that anybody can do, regardless of, whether they're a wealthy philanthropist or not. I mean, when you think about, the size of your estate, your home, your investments that you don't need anymore, that can be a big chunk of change. And even 1% of that can be a huge gift, probably more than anybody can leave in their lifetime. So this is something that anybody can do.
And as you know, I worked in legacy giving for many, many years, and the conversations I would have literally with hundreds of donors, and many of them would say to me, I want to leave a gift in my will, Sam, but I want to make sure that my children and my grandchildren are cared for. And we would often talk about something called the charity child, where you can still care for your family, you can still do all of the things you want to do, but you can also take the values that you've had in life and really, transfer them through to when you're gone to be remembered and leave this incredible legacy. And like I said, it doesn't matter the amount, it's the thought.
Exactly. The way we like to talk about it in the Willpower campaign is in percentages. So if you think willpower.ca website, we've got this legacy calculator where you can kind of just estimate the size of your estate and then, this kind of toggle to see, well, what does 1% look like to charity? And I've got this much left for my family. It's a really good way to kind
of sort of in my network that still don't have a will. It's such an important piece. And I often sort of joke that I've had 5 wills, but I wanted to also leave a mark where they've left a mark on my life. So I've left 2 gifts in my will, one to where I went to school, which is Algonquin College, and one to where I gave birth to my beautiful baby girl, and that's the Queensway Carleton Hospital. So those 2 are organizations that mean a lot to me. So I think you really have to look inside, right?
Exactly. I mean, this is, as you mentioned earlier, an expression of your values. And what's also great about this is, you're kind of signaling to your daughter, to your friends, to your family, like what's important to you, what you hold dear, in hopes that, those causes are passed on, those values are passed on to future generations as well. It's like you said, you have to look inside and what part of you want to continue, what values you want to continue on.
What a great conversation. I know Willpower, you've got a fantastic website. I send a lot of people there. Lori Fox, campaign director for Willpower. Appreciate it. When we come back just after the 10:30 news, we will have two former mayors here to talk about this LRT inquiry report, Bob Chiarelli and Larry O'Brien. You'll want to be here too. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
My name is Joel Tammet.
The Regular.
Depression.
Clear. PTSD.
1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back here on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. We are having a discussion today with two former mayors of Ottawa. Larry O'Brien joins us now again. Thank you so much, Larry.
My pleasure.
And we've invited as well to the discussion former Mayor of Ottawa, Bob Chiarelli. Thanks again, Bob, for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.
The pressure to open this system, Larry, we know the pressure was on Mayor Watson to get this done and get it up and running. We see now that was a mistake. When you think back to that moment and think back about the derailments that have happened and what this city has gone through in terms of transit accidents in the last number of years, the city was already, sort of on watch, if you will, in regards to the safety of any system here in Ottawa. What would you have done if you would have been pressured to do that system but feel that it wasn't ready?
Well, that's a great question, Sam, and I think in order to answer that question, you had to be in the details. I've done some pretty big projects in my life, and as I mentioned earlier, their first big mistake was buying the system that they bought with the technical specifications not being satisfactory, not being up to the job. I think in that situation, the pressures on the mayor would have been significant, both from locally and I believe provincially, to get the system up and going, because there was a provincial election around the time that they had to push that forward. And that sort of brings up another issue that I thought the timing of the release of this report is very interesting. They could have just as easily released this report 2 weeks before the election, which would probably have changed the complexion of the election tremendously. So I wonder about that. I think if they had released the reports 2 weeks before and people understood the gravity of the situation, a candidate like Bob Chiarelli would have garnered certainly a much more significant response, because people would want a stable, experienced, steady hand at the helm to work their way out of this. So I think some discussion has to be held around the timing of the release of this report as well. But I can't tell you what I would have done differently, because I just didn't have the details, or don't have the details of what was going through Mayor Watson and Steve Kanellakis' communications. I think they did a lot of offline communications. So they obviously were dealing with lots of pressures and lots of issues.
Mm-hmm. When I think about this LRT system, obviously, we have a governance system. There's a reason why we have a mayor and a council. But should a system that really is all about engineering and safety and efficiencies have that type of shadow over it of politics, Bob? I mean, how much did politics affect this? Really, at the end of the day, it's actually a bit scary.
Well, my perspective, and I don't want to seem to be pretty harsh, with Mayor Watson, but Mayor Watson was responsible for this from the beginning. And my understanding is that they went through a procurement process, and the person or persons who were responsible for the procurement, from my understanding, did not have the proper experience to deal with a $2.5 billion project of this type. And that's where it went sideways. When the teams came together and so on and so forth, there was procurement leadership that basically went right to Mayor Watson's desk because he was calling the shots. He put the procurement person or persons in place, and it started going sideways from day one. So I think that a lot of the blame has to do with the beginning of the project, that they made some very significant mistakes at the beginning of the project, how they were weighting the bidders, and there was a lot of questions that were being raised at that time, and it should have been nipped then, but it allowed to grow like an octopus in different directions without proper oversight. The oversight had to be from the mayor. The mayor had to have the right people in place for procurement and to do the follow-up, and it wasn't there. I mean,
well, he's not an operator, Bob. Jim Watson was never an operator. He's never run any kind of organization. He's a politician. And I'm not defending him. I'm just simply saying that's the nature of the beast.
Well, I think it's also interesting to note that Jim is not in town. I understand he's away for 2 or 3 weeks. So several days before this report was coming out, the mayor, or the outgoing mayor, was not available to help in the transition in any way, shape, or form. And probably because it was beyond his capacity to be able to deal with a big technical issue of this type.
Let me ask you, Larry, when you think about everything that's gone on, this city wanted this LRT, and to be very frank with you, and I'll give the credit to Bob Shirelli, the very first time I ever heard the term LRT was many, many years ago working with Bob. This system was meant to draw tourism here. It was meant for us to be able to then host big events, attract conferences to this city, have a city that residents could easily get around, that was going to be, worthy of a capital city. Have we and will we ever meet that goal, Larry?
I think we've failed on every aspect of those requirements. I'm not sure if we're ever going to get there now. I'm an optimistic person. I always like to think that there's hope. But when they made a system where it takes you 3 transfers to get to the airport on an LRT, it just boggles the mind how someone could be that dumb and make decisions of that nature. So I'm not sure if we're going to get out of this. Now, on the other side of the coin from that, with my optimist hat on, Sam, every transportation system eventually gets filled to capacity. It may not be for 20 years from now that we'll figure out how to get there. So we maybe the long term, we're going to have a system that is in play, and it's going to take a lot of tweaks. And as Bob rightfully pointed out, a lot more money to bring this thing up to spec. But in 20 or 30 years, we'll probably remember the disaster that was LRT, but at least we have a transportation system. But that's with my optimistic hat on. Mm-hmm. Negative hat on, as Bob rightfully pointed out, we have some problems, and they need some adult supervision. I think we have a brand new council, and we have a brand new mayor who has the opportunity now, without any personal responsibility, to fix it and make that his number one priority.
Gentlemen, I am so grateful for your time that you would come on, spend this half an hour with us, taking a deep dive into this LRT inquiry report. And thank you both for joining us on City News.
Thank you. One last word, Sam. is there is a way through this hardship, and it's LeBreton Flats. If we can be successful with LeBreton Flats, and we can get the LRT moving where people can get in and out of LeBreton Flats on the LRT from across the whole city, it could end up being a huge success with the senators and the housing and the other activities that are going to be on. So we have to be really, really careful in terms of how we manage as a city, how we manage the development of LeBreton Flats and the activities that could be settled there moving forward. So I think we can recover if we get LeBreton Flats done correctly.
Thank you so much, 100%. Bob. I appreciate that. Bob Chiarelli, former mayor of Ottawa, and joined by former mayor of Ottawa, Larry O'Brien. What an interesting half an hour. Thanks again, gentlemen. We're heading into the news. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join us on the next Simply Cooking by Chef, where I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'll make it right before your eyes. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
My name is Joel Tamas, this is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Friday, December 2nd. Good morning, I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy skies and 1 degree. In Smiths Falls, it's 2 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. You have another week to donate to the Snowsuit Fund and be entered for a chance to win a $1,000 gift card to Canadian Tire. You can still buy tickets past that date, and money towards the campaign is used to purchase snowsuits for kids in the area that need one. The Snowsuit Fund Chair, Danny Kingsbury, tells City News that the pandemic has led to a streamlined process to make sure everyone who needs a snowsuit can get one.
It used to be a free-for-all. You could come in at any time of the hours of operation, and that led to periods of time where there would be just too many people in the depot. But now we do it by appointment basis only. Not only, we still do accept some walk-ins.
Now, you can text the word money to 555-555 to get a link to donate. The draw is scheduled for Friday, January 20th, and the jackpot currently sits over $59,000. City News time, 11:03. Checking in on our weather, let's get the latest from our meteorologist, Jill Taylor.
Well, as we work through the day, we'll have varying amounts of sun and cloud, a south wind to about 25 kilometers per hour, and the guaranteed high 4 degrees. That's above average. The average high is 0. +1 for the lows. Some rain showers move in late tonight. Will stay with us through the day on Saturday. It will be on and off for most of the day. Gusty southwest wind, milder high 8, and then cooler again on Sunday with sun and cloud. For today, the guaranteed high 4.
And right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy, 1 degree. In Smiths Falls, it's 2 degrees. The largest single-day annual food drive is taking place this weekend. Tomorrow is the 38th annual OC Transpo Food Drive, which gives back to the Ottawa Food Bank. The drive is in collaboration with Loblaws, and you can donate non-perishable items outside select grocery stores. You can also make a direct donation through the Ottawa Food Bank. Hockey Canada says there were more than 900 documented or alleged incidents of on-ice discrimination across all levels and age groups during the 2021-2022 season. Here's Adam Burns with the latest.
The data comes from the organization's first ever report tracking discrimination. The incidents include verbal taunts, insults, and intimidation. Hockey Canada says 512 penalties for discrimination were called by officials, and 415 allegations were investigated after the fact. The report's release comes after Hockey Canada announced an action plan in July aimed at addressing what it called toxic behavior in the sport. Adam Burns, The Canadian Press.
Now, today's update on the health of Canadian job markets will be cold comfort to borrowers. The economy added jobs last month, over 10,000. Here's Mike Apple with the latest.
The central bank has been saying it wants to cool off the labor market and bring down wage pressures. But they didn't get much of that in the November jobs report. As 10,000 more jobs were added last month, the unemployment rate fell, and wage growth at 5.6% year over year has been above that 5% handle for 6 consecutive months. So we're expecting next week the central bank will be raising its overnight lending rate for a 7th time this year, likely by 50 basis points. The labor market has been remarkably resilient. All of the jobs added last month were of the full-time variety. And despite a slowing economy, a lot of jobs remained unfilled. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Apple.
And I'm Perushka Gopal-Kister. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. We certainly have a very busy day for you today. Coming up on the lunch, we're going to be spending time today with Walter Robinson and Christina Spencer. Christina Spencer, of course, editorial pages editor with the Ottawa Citizen. Walter Robinson, former City of Ottawa executive and political commentator. We want to connect with Ray Pennings today, executive vice president of Cardis. Hi, Ray.
Good morning.
Ray, I understand you've been working on a topic that is very, very challenging for some people here in Canada, and that is MAID. What have you learned?
Well, the issue came up, of course, in Canada with a 2015 Supreme Court decision, which indicated that there was a constitutional for patients that had irremediable suffering whose death was imminent. And the government proceeded with legislation in 2017 to make that possible. Since that time, we've moved to the point where we are among the leaders in the world with the number of patients who choose MAID as a way of going. And increasingly of late, there have been concerns which have been raised right from the beginning that it's one thing to provide the supply for MAID, but we also need to take a look at where the demand is coming from. We've had a number of people who have not been able to get the medical care they need or the social services they need and turn to MAID as a last resort. And I think that most of us would think, even if you're in favor of MAID for irremediable.
Oh, I think we might have lost
someone choosing to die because the circumstances of their life are, we're not providing for their needs as a society. Mm-hmm. And then I suspect the reason that we're talking today is the remarks of Minister Lametti.
Exactly.
Which indicated, and he made in a podcast on November the 18th, he indicated the fact that he alluded to a right to suicide. up until which really is a game changer in terms of the conversation. Up until now, MAID advocates have taken pains to make great distinction between suicide, hopelessness in life, and we have all sorts of suicide prevention programs and everything else, and MAID, and they argued it was something quite different. Minister Laprade made an allusion to a right to suicide, and linked it very much with MAID along the way, suggesting that the Canadian Minister of Justice thinks that anyone will to access MAID at any time. And in fact, that if someone is suicidal, we have a right or obligation, because it would be a more humane way for the states to assist and for that person to have to carry out their wishes themselves. Now, that's, I think, horrific. It's interesting to see, the minister has not, to the best of my knowledge, clarified his remarks in any way. Certainly not from the Supreme Court decision, which paints something very different. The other question one has is, if it's a right to suicide, does that mean suicide prevention programs violate Canadian rights? There are lots of places of great concern in the minister's comments.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to speak with you today, to be honest with you, Ray, is because language matters here. And we haven't, as far as I can tell, the minister hasn't come back and indicated that there's been any change of language there.
Yeah, and I agree. It's interesting, as someone who's been concerned about this issue right from the beginning, it's interesting, the Supreme Court of Canada in the Sue Rodriguez case in the 90s dealt with the matter, and there already the language was very much about assisted suicide. By the time we reconsidered the fact in 2015, the court was talking about medical assistance in dying, and I, for one, object to even that change of language, because in my view, the practice of medicine, and I think you can take a look at how the Canada Health Act defines it, I can take a look at the Hippocratic Oath, quite apart from whether or not you are in favor of assisted dying, there is a question, is that really part of healthcare or is that some other service? And that raises lots of questions in terms of people who enter the healthcare system to care for people and to keep them alive. Many of them have conscientious objections to participating in that and don't see it as part of healthcare. They may see it as humane and proper, but something quite different. And now we're going a step further and saying it's not only part of healthcare, it's actually part of a right to end your own life. And the state has an obligation to assist you in exercising that right. Those are significant terms with huge legal, social, and cultural consequences in terms of how human life is viewed.
It's such an important conversation, Ray, and I think, when we speak about this, I look back to when I lost my father in 2016. Had this been, and he passed away February of 2016, had this been an option, I think our family and he would have chose this, to see how he passed away, in terms of, just seeing how difficult it was on him, how difficult it was on our family. My views on it changed, Ray, when my family went through it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Palliative care, and sorry for your loss. My wife and I, similarly, while we were going through that, we lost all four parents in a relatively short period of time. Thankfully, in all four of our cases, we were able to access palliative care. And while one died in a hospital, one died at home, and one in a palliative care wing of a hospital as well, and the other in a nursing home. So four very different settings. We were, as a family, able to experience the benefits of palliative care that, you can't eliminate suffering, but the vast majority of suffering today can be dealt with in palliative care. And they were actually wonderful times for us as a family, because death isn't just about the individual. When we die, you're a parent, you're a sibling, you're a spouse. There is a process that goes through, and it can be a very powerful and positive experience. And, that doesn't mean it's there for everyone. I think the tragedy is that we are investing significant resources in MAID. Every doctor in medical school, I understand, today is learning MAID, yet only 5% of the population is there.
Right.
Palliative care is only available to about 20 or 30% of Canadians. We have all sorts of abilities in our medical system to assist in the dying process, and we're not putting our resources to there. Instead, we're turning our resources to something that has significant concerns in terms of how it goes. And when you do that at the expense of providing the services that I think most Canadians would agree should be available to all, then one has to ask the question, is choice real?
Right.
We talk about MAID being an element of choice, but when you eliminate practically the options for the care that Canadians deserve, are we really still talking about choice?
Wow, what an interesting discussion. I could speak to you for another hour, honestly, on this. It's something very near and dear to my heart. Let's connect again, Ray, especially, as we speak about Minister Lametti and what's going to come out in terms of that, okay?
I would love to have further conversations. Thank you so much for your interest in this. And, this is an important, I think, tipping point in the conversation, because now we're talking about something quite different from irremediable suffering at the end of life to something that's available to all regarding of circumstances.
Very important.
That's a pretty scary thought.
Absolutely. Ray Pennings, we're going to get connected again. Ray joining us, of course, Executive Vice President of Cardis, talking about MAID. When we come back, our City News web editor is going to break down this busy week for us. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
Giovanni! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful! Don't fall.
Come on, we have to hurry.
Hurry! There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for sparks.
His hair's on fire.
Keep their hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Bipolar disorder.
Substance addiction.
Bulimia.
OCD. Want to swap?
One in two, a flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds.
Hey, I'm Ash Ravens. I'm a singer-songwriter in Ottawa, Canada. I'm performing this week on Encore Ottawa 3, so please be sure to tune in and hope you enjoy it.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, what a week it has been here. The City News team has been very, very busy. We're just receiving some breaking news from Ottawa Police Service. They're aware, this is a quote from them, Ottawa Police Service is aware of information posted on social media channels. The Ottawa Police continually is monitoring for upcoming events, protests, and demonstrations that may impact the city. Once identified, we plan accordingly in a collaborative manner with our city partners and other agencies. This is regarding, if you can even believe it, Freedom Convoy 2.0, which is supposedly coming to this city in February of 2023. So lots to keep our eyes on today. We wanted to get caught up with our City News web editor, and that's Anil Jolly. Hello, Anil.
Hi, Sam.
It has been a very, very busy week, as we know. Let's start at the beginning of the week. We got the surprise news that city manager Steve Kanellakis resigned. What were your thoughts?
What were my thoughts? Well, I don't want to speculate, Sam, but we all know 2 days later after that happened, a scathing, damning LRT report came.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing is, in words, fishy.
Absolutely.
Is a little fishy, but yeah. And then 2 days later, we got that LRT report. So.
Yes, very, very interesting. So we know that came out of, it was a bit of a surprise when we saw, other city officials at that level. I think about people like Anthony DeMonte. I think about Steve Willis. I think about John Manconi. They were giving months' notice so the succession plan could continue. Mm-hmm. Do you think, at the end of the day, that this has left Mayor Mark Sutcliffe a bit on the back foot, not having that leadership at the senior bureaucrat level?
Absolutely. I think he was even scheduled at the end of the year. I think his term was coming up anyway, right? But yeah, I mean, it kind of puts everybody there in kind of a scramble to find, because he doesn't have his leader, he doesn't have the person who's responsible. So yeah, it kind of leaves everybody in the dust. And we don't, like we said, we don't want to speculate as to what happened, but I mean, say what you will about the report that came out. So, and we all read that report. So
certainly interesting. And then, of course, we all had the date November 30th circled on our calendar. We certainly did here at City News because we were all waiting for that LRT inquiry report to be brought down to Council and to Transit Commission. It was released, as we know. You mentioned a little bit earlier the timing of City Manager Steve Kanellakis and him leaving. This report is quite thick, if you will. It's a very big report, lots of recommendations, 103 recommendations. When you're covering a story like this as our web editor here at City News, where do you even begin to sort of dissect something like that?
Well, 640 plus pages is a lot of information to get through. Luckily, at points, you can kind of look up the keywords. But yeah, I went through the report and was able to kind of pick out the key information and just weave something in with all that. So
absolutely, such an important point in terms of just the vastness of that, which we really wanted a thorough report. Which is really, really important. But at the same time, that executive summary, I think, was helpful for us in the media. It came down at 11 o'clock. And of course, in the media, we wanted to start talking about it at 11:01. So some of the initial, different pieces of the report that were really important from an executive summary perspective really are issues such as the communication between RTG and the City of Ottawa. What were some of your thoughts there?
Or lack thereof communication, Sam.
Right.
The thing with the report is I don't think that a lot of it was a surprise to people. I think it was just more of a validation. This is what we've assumed. This is what we've thought. And now to see it in words, is it going to give people closure? We don't know.
Right.
Right? But the people of Ottawa, the loyal transit users of this city, have been wanting answers for a very long time. Not just the transit users, but everybody. How much did this cost us to build? Right? How much did it cost the city? And there was no transparency. There was, and in the report there wasn't. Well, it should have been done this. It should have been no. It's calling people out for their lack of communication or honesty with council in the city.
And we to be done in this city. How big of a job do you think that is for Mayor Sutcliffe at the end of the day, that he'll be able to take those recommendations and move this city forward?
Well, now with 11 new faces, 11 new councillors and a new mayor, I think now is an opportunity to take those recommendations and now move forward and provide people of Ottawa with some kind of closure to work on these solutions, to work on these recommendations. Like Mayor Sutcliffe had said, he's come up with an action plan.
And of course, as the City News web editor, you cover so many different stories in a day. Honestly, I don't know how you do it. It is definitely a very big job. The tragic accident that happened in the States, and it's left him, paralyzed as a quadriplegic. We know that there was a very big fundraising effort last night. I understand it was very successful.
See, I mean, he was a star. Like, he was good, right? He was on his way. And just, for me, what paid for, it just tells you to the generosity and amazingness of our community.
Absolutely.
So it makes this, while the subject was hard to write and hard to kind of interpret in words, just knowing that fact that how this community has come together.
Because, you rely on each other. We have a very big loss today in terms of Danielle Bain. Our Danielle Bain is going to work at our sister station in Toronto at 680. She's a superstar. She's going to do amazing. I'm going to miss her dearly, I know.
Yeah, Danielle is amazingly talented. She's funny. She brings this energy into the newsroom, and we are going to miss her here, and our loss here is their gain.
She is the sunshine in this new...
That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Join us on the next Simply Cooking by Chef, where I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'll make it right before your eyes. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Once upon a there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods atop.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Friday, December 2nd. Good morning, I'm Pirushka Gopalkista. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, partly cloudy and 2 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Lawyers for the Freedom Convoy organizers have won their bid to access unredacted versions of 20 documents at the Public Order Emergencies Act. Lawyer Brendan Miller applied to have the public inquiry release information in government documents that it had blocked out, arguing that the information should not have been protected by parliamentary privilege. Now, Commissioner Paul Rouleau says the Government of Canada has agreed to release the unredacted documents voluntarily. The documents include written notes and text message exchanges that belong to the Prime Minister's staff. The federal environment minister says he is very worried about Ontario's government plan to remove land built from 15 different areas of the protected Greenbelt so that 50,000 homes can be built. He is warning Ottawa will not provide disaster compensation where a province deliberately allows housing to be built in flood-prone areas. Now, Ontario created the Greenbelt in 2005 to protect agricultural and environmentally sensitive lands in the Greater Golden Horseshoe area from development. And Ottawa police are asking you to drive carefully, especially in busy areas. This comes after a child was struck by a vehicle around 8 this morning in the Hintonburg area. Now, the child was taken to hospital with injuries and police are still investigating. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, you're back with us here on City News and Rogers TV. Thank you so much for listening in and tuning in. I wanted to connect today with Howard Levitt, and this is a story that is very interesting to me. He is a senior partner at Levitt Chic LLP. How are you, Howard?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Howard, when you hear the name Mary Ellen Turple-Lafond, what comes to mind for you?
Well, someone who is taking the role that Indigenous people have earned and are entitled to by being an imposter. That's my perspective from everything I've seen.
So let's back up a little bit for our listeners. So when we hear that name, as you mentioned, you know, there's definitely some stuff that's gone on here, which is really unfortunate because Indigenous people, you know, through Truth and Reconciliation and for decades and centuries have been trying to find their place, you know, in this country and be recognized by us. And it's really unfortunate to see that, you know, that Mary Ellen Turple-Lafond has used, you know, an identity that wasn't hers.
That appears to be the result of CBC's very good investigative journalism.
So tell me about her.
Well, she's a Harvard grad, but apparently she claimed to have the Harvard degree before she had it. She's a Cambridge grad, but apparently she claimed to have a master's of law when she had a diploma or certificate instead. She's the first supposed Aboriginal judge in Saskatchewan. She's got 11 honorary doctorates, professor at UBC Law School right now, a superstar. And look, the woman is smart and could have accomplished a lot without claiming to be Aboriginal. But she claimed that that she's Cree by background, that her father's Cree, but all of the investigative research suggests he's not. Then she said, well, he was adopted. And then CBC found his birth notice from his white parents, and he wasn't adopted later on. So it's just one thing after another.
But why would somebody do that, Howard?
It is
was she
tremendously.
Like,
if you're a janitor or a mechanic or a restaurant worker, it's probably a disadvantage to be Aboriginal. If you're a senior bureaucrat or executive or a professor, it's an advantage to be an Aboriginal. There's all kinds of opportunities being opened to BIPOCs and Aboriginals in particular. So if you claim you're Aboriginal, you get status and opportunities you wouldn't have otherwise.
Do you know if she was misled by her family or did she mislead?
Well, look, what do I know? I just know what I read, which is CBC's research. It's hard to believe her family claimed, her father claimed to be something that he wasn't. But she claims she grew up in what's called Norway, Norway, a small tribe in northern Manitoba, to an abusive, toxic household, and it turns out she was brought up in Niagara Falls. So the whole story seems to be a scam.
But is there a mental illness perspective here? Do you know that, Howard?
No, I don't know that. Mm-hmm. The woman is highly functioning, cogent. Hard to believe a law professor is mentally ill to the point of being delusional. Could she have talked herself into something over the years by living the life so closely and continuously? I guess it's possible. I don't know her.
So in terms of the investigation you indicated done by CBC into her background, do you know why this originally was even an issue, why somebody would take time to investigate this woman's heritage?
I suspect I don't know, but I suspect you'd have to speak to the CBC reporter, who's the initial investigator, but I suspect there were rumors that were following around a little bit and someone decided to do a deep dive. And the whole issue of what's called pretend Indians is a problem, and there's many people doing that for those sorts of advantages, and a lot of Aboriginals are calling them out. Now, interestingly, when the story first broke by CBC, the Aboriginal community rallied behind her because she's made so many important positive contributions, but now they're falling away as more and more stories come out.
And it's just so unfortunate because, I think about, Indigenous people and how they were in this beautiful land, and we, I'm speaking about myself because I'm my heritage is from Europe, but we came to this country and we changed this country. And this is somebody that's taking advantage of that. And I'm heartbroken when I think about conversations I've had with people like Claudette Commanda, and Algonquin Elder. I think about all the communications that I've had with Cindy Blackstock over the years in terms of Indigenous rights. I can't even imagine that this woman would still be working. Do you know if she's working?
She's a UBC law professor.
Still.
I asked the question in my column in the Financial Post, my second one on this subject, because, of course, there's two employment law themes. One, what happens when you find you've misrepresented your way into a position? Is that cause for discharge, which it generally is? And secondly, if you behaved in a way that is fundamentally embarrassing, damages the brand of your organization, that could be cause for discharge. So I asked the question, what's UBC going to do about this? So far, nothing.
And what message does that send to other people that are misrepresenting themselves in terms of their employment?
Well, it sends a message you might well be able to get away with it if nothing happens.
And, I think about the market that we're in right now. People are so desperate to hire people. And I don't know if you recall the incident. It was a very different incident than what we're talking about, but you'll get my point. When there was, people scrambling through the convoy, or not the convoy, my apologies, through COVID. And somebody hired somebody that supposedly did sign language, and they didn't do sign language at all. I mean, those.
I never heard that story. I wonder how long they get away with that one.
Well, it was when they did
they signed.
Well, when they did a news conference, and obviously the deaf community said, I don't know what this person is saying. So, my point is, are we doing the background checks on people like we should be? Are we taking shortcuts?
Well, I know of a firm in the city, a law firm, that hired somebody who was under criminal investigation for a very serious sexual assault, and they didn't do the background check. Of course, you wouldn't think to do it with a lawyer, would you?
Oh, it was a lawyer?
Yes, it was a lawyer.
So there's an assumption that a lawyer doesn't have any criminal dealings, or?
Well, you asked that so quizzically and ironically that suggesting the answer that, of course, lawyers are people too and have the same fallibilities as everyone else. So, but perhaps that was the assumption that something so horrendous, it's unlikely and not even worth asking about. It's funny, it seemed funny of me interviewing a lawyer to ask, have you been charged with assault? Have you been charged with any criminal conduct right now? It doesn't seem like a question that normally flow from an employment interview of a lawyer, but perhaps we have to ask those sorts of questions.
Howard, what are the main topics that come to your firm to deal with?
Oh, everything to do with hiring, firing, human rights, occupational health and safety, workers' compensation. But in this context, a lot of employers are asking the question. I have an employee who is really damaging my brand, who's a name of the company, and they've taken some positions, or we found out some things about them that are going to be very damaging for this company. Can we fire them for cause as a result of their behavior? That comes up a lot. Sometimes we've got a star, but it's just come out that this star has a sordid past that we didn't know about. Can we do anything about that? And they lied their way or misrepresented their way or didn't disclose their way into the job. Those are questions that come up in the context of what we're talking about today.
It's fascinating subject for sure. I am sure there's more people than Mary Ellen Turple-Lafond doing this in this country. If somebody's listening right now and they know something like this is happening in their agency, their organization, their company, what recommendation would you have?
Well, if someone is doing that, they might have cause to discharge them without severance pay. And if that is something they wish to do, then they should speak to counsel to get advice, someone like me. And if they find out about it and do nothing and then become unhappy with them a year later or 6 months later, it's too late to fire them for that. Once you know about it, you have to act on it.
Mm-hmm. And, has she apologized to the Indigenous community?
Oh, no. She's saying, as far as I know, she's maintaining she's a Cree. She's maintaining her story.
Well, fascinating.
And she's refusing to answer questions, saying that CBC is answering intrusive questions that go to her privacy and confidentiality rights, and she won't answer them. When they're asking, show us your treaty card, show us this, tell us about this, how do you explain this? She's not answering.
I appreciate you.
But imagine, from her perspective, if she admits to it all now, if she admits that CBC is correct, assuming that's the case, she's finished. Should we be anyway?
Right. So by maintaining no answer, she's keeping her job.
Well, we'll see if she does. If she keeps her job, UBC should be under a lot of pressure. And the Aboriginal Women's Collective has asked all 11 universities in Canada that have given her honorary degrees to renounce them. And I gather every single one of them has said they're thinking about it.
Oh, interesting. Well, there's obviously lots to be done with this story still. Howard, I hope you'll join me again and we can take a deeper dive.
Sure. It's a fascinating story, isn't it?
Absolutely. Howard Levitt spending time with us today on City News, senior partner at Levitt Chic LLP, speaking about Mary Ellen Turple-Lafond. Fascinating story, which we'll continue to cover with Howard. When we come back, Keith Whittier is going to be here. And guess what? I haven't chatted with Keith in a few weeks, so we're going to be reunited. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On Friday's Daytime Ottawa, we are going to share some simple and fun DIY holiday gift ideas. Well, by we, I mean Erin Rochon. She'll be joining us to share those ideas, as well as the Ottawa Food Bank has their big Goose concert coming up. It is one of their best fundraisers of the season. We'll share all the details with you on that, and we'll tell you about an upcoming performance with a 150-member choir.
After a 2-year hiatus, we are back with brand new episodes of Celebrate Ottawa starting this fall. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that will entertain you and will even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grind, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
From coast to coast, all across Canada, there's something very special going on. It's time to show your support. Time to spread the word. Time to demonstrate your commitment to safe and sober driving. Join thousands of Canadians and tie a ribbon on something or someone you love. And take the time to have a real conversation about impaired driving. Mad Project Red Ribbon. Tie it, wear it, show it, share it, live it. Find out more at mad.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hey, I'm Ash Ravens. I'm a singer-songwriter in Ottawa, Canada. I'm performing this week on Encore Ottawa 3, so please be sure to tune in and hope you enjoy it.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Reunited and it feels so good. Reunited 'cause we understood. There's one perfect fit and sugar, this one is it. We both are so excited 'cause we're reunited.
Well, we just had to mark this occasion because Keith Whittier and I haven't been together for a few weeks, and we're reunited now. Keith, how are you?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Keith Whittier, of course, joins us here to talk all things movie. He's a movie reviewer. How have you been? I've missed you.
I have missed you as well. You know what? Things have been going okay. The World Cup has been keeping me distracted from the fact that I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you for a few weeks. And, you know, I mean, I do keep the Kleenex close by because sometimes I reminisce and I get a little sad, but that's all in the past. We're together again.
There you go. And it does feel good. We want to talk about lots of different movies today. Let's start with Bones and All.
There's a lover in the story, but the story's still the same. There's a lullaby for suffering and a paradox to blame. I didn't know I had permission to murder and to maim. You want it darker? We kill the flame. You don't think I'm a bad person?
All I think is that I love you.
You look like the kind that's convinced himself he's got this under his thumb. But you pull on one little thread and I'm ready.
Okay, Keith, you need to tell me about this.
Okay, so this is such an interesting film. It's by a filmmaker, Luca Guadagnino, who did the film Call Me By Your Name. There's nothing cookie cutter about this guy. So in this film, we have Timothée Chalamet and Taylor Russell, who basically play eaters, and what they eat are humans. So they're cannibals, and they end up finding each other. And I guess it's this kind of like, you know, low key group of people who run around eating other humans. And so the movie is somewhat violent, but it's also a love story in the sense of these two are just drawn together. If violence isn't your cup of tea, this is definitely a movie that you're going to want to skip. What I can tell you though is that we've got Timothée Chalamet, who's been Academy Award nominated, fantastic young actor. He's been in movies like Dune. He was also in that Call Me By Your Name I mentioned. Great, fantastic young actor. And Taylor Russell, who I'm calling the best young actor who you've probably never heard of, just because a lot of the films that she's been in have been so under the radar, but she's such a strong actor. Mm-hmm. So this film, believe it or not, works. It's not going to work for everybody. Let's be clear about that. But I did find it to be a very good film. Is it a movie that I need to run back and watch multiple times? Absolutely not. But that being said, for what it was a good film. It's unique. I'll give you that. Right. I mean, there's nothing like it right now. So again, strong film. Not going to be everybody's appetite, pun intended, but you know, still entertaining nonetheless.
There you go. Let's talk next about Violent Night.
It's Christmas!
We decided that you could have one gift.
Early.
What is it?
That is a direct hotline to Santa Claus himself.
I can talk to Santa?
All right, revelers. Welcome to your worst Christmas ever. Let's go! You have $300 million in your personal vault. That's what I want for Christmas.
Wow, a Christmas movie, Keith?
It is. So listen, take a break from all of the Hallmark interchangeable movies and come in from the cold and watch Violent Night. We've got David Harbour. We've got David Harbour as Santa Claus in this film. And this movie is really, let's see, Home Alone meets Die Hard with a little splash of Bad Santa. So David Harbour is Santa Claus, and he's, Christmas Eve, he's going from house to house, and then he comes upon this house that just happens to be subject to a home invasion, where we've got these mercenaries coming in looking to steal a lot of money. And now it's Santa to save the day. Like the movie we just talked about, again, this does tread on the violent side, but oh my gosh, it's just so entertaining.
Wow.
For somebody like myself who's looking for something a little different and something that's kind of remixed with things that we've seen before, but still in a fun new way, Violent Night really delivers. Plus, it's nice to see somebody like David Harbour, who we don't see in a ton of leading roles.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him more so in supporting roles. It's nice to see him have that opportunity. And again, I thought this movie was very well done. I thought it was very entertaining.
Interesting. Okay, let's go to number 3, which is The Inspection.
Aye, sir! Aye, sir!
Ever been convicted of a felony? Are you communist?
60, 50, 40!
Are you now, or have you ever been a homosexual?
No, sir!
I will break you. I promise.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Keith, tell us about this one.
Yeah, so now we're taking a break from the violence and we're getting into more of a dramatic film. This is a film by writer-director Elegance Bratton, and basically it tells the story of a young gay black man played exceptionally by Jeremy Pope, who is finding in his life right now, he's living on the streets. His mother is extremely disappointed in pretty much every aspect of his life, and he wants to do something that's going to earn, her pride and her respect. So he decides to enlist in the Marines. So this film really takes you through what it would look like for somebody going through military training, but also through the lens of a young gay black man. The race, I don't find, figures as much into this film as much as his sexuality does, and from that perspective, I found this movie very interesting. This is a very strong dramatic film. This was at the Toronto Film Festival. I wanted to say, I thought for some reason it might have been on streaming, but maybe not, but it's in theaters now. And again, a very, very strong, powerful film. And I found this to be probably one of the better films that was at TIFF this past September.
Okay, well, I'm going to check that out. I can't promise I'm going to check out the first two you talked about. But I will check this one out for sure. And the fourth and final, of course, Hunt.
그쪽 정보부에 북조선 잡자가 있어.
동민? 모두 절멸한 것 같습니다.
이 정도 기밀이 샜다는 건 분명히 여기에, 그것도 윗선에 두더지가 있다.
용의자를 사살하면 어떡해? 인질이 되지 말았어야죠. 이 시간부로 24시간 도검청 부장. 뭐하는 짓이야?
Okay, tell us about Hunt, Keith.
Well, two things that I have not kept a secret when I come onto the show: my affection for you, my affection for Squid Game. So Squid Game, I think it was the best show that came out during the pandemic. I loved it. And the main star from Squid Game, Lee Jung-jae, he is here in his directorial debut and also starring in this film that's set in the 80s. It's this whole espionage film where basically there is an assassination attempt that's being planned on a major Korean official, and basically they're trying to stop it. So the action sequences in this film, Sam, are very entertaining. I thought they were extremely well done. The challenge is that once we get to the dialogue in the film, that's where it's kind of like a little flat, because there are so many twists and turns in this film to the point where the audience is just getting confused to the point of, okay, what are we doing here? What's happening? And I think that's where the movie falls. This movie, for me, serves as a reminder of just because you're fantastic in front of the camera doesn't mean you're going to be great and fantastic behind the camera.
Right.
I am anxiously anticipating Squid Game Season 2. I can't say that I'm anxiously anticipating recommending this movie for anybody. I think this is a movie, wait for it to come to streaming services, quite frankly. I don't think it's something that you need to rush out and see. I think there's way too many other options that deserve your time. But it was okay. It just didn't hit for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds good. That's why we rely on that honest review, Keith. Thank you so much. I'm thinking ahead because we're into December now. So I'm thinking ahead to Broadway across Canada. Come From Away is coming to the beautiful NAC. Broadway across Canada has hit it out of the park this year. They did a beautiful job with Pretty Woman. We saw each other there. That was fantastic.
It was fitting seeing you at Pretty Woman.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Aren't you sweet? I'm really looking forward to Come From Away. It'll be I'm embarrassed to say, I know it's very privileged of me to say, it'll be my 4th time to see this production, and I would see it time and time again.
It is a fantastic show. I had the opportunity of seeing it when it was in Toronto, and for those who aren't familiar with it, I think it's just this beautiful story of kind of taking the light from the dark. You know, with the backdrop of 9/11, all of these planes had to land somewhere, and they ended up going to Newfoundland, and of course being well received and with open, loving arms. And I think it's a beautiful story to that community and to the country overall. So I'm very excited to see it again. I can totally appreciate why you would have gone to see it multiple times.
Absolutely. And I took my daughter to see it on Broadway in New York City, and we saw it in Toronto, and now seeing it in our own hometown through Broadway across Canada is very, very exciting. I hope I see you there that night.
I will look forward to it. I'll do my hair, which is, for those who don't know me, I shave my head. So there we go.
There you go. Keith, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Absolutely. You take care.
Have a great weekend. Keith Whittier is a movie reviewer, and he spends a lot of time every week getting ready for those interviews, making sure that we know what to watch either on the big screen or the little screen at home. It is Lunch with Sam right around the corner. Christina Spencer is going to be joining us for lunch, and we've invited Walter Robinson. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
There we go.
Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Join us on the next Simply Cooking by Chef, where I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'll make it right before your eyes. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Friday, December 2nd. Good afternoon. I'm Perushka Gopalkista. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, partly cloudy and 2 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that senior officials are planning ahead for the possibility of another Freedom Convoy protest in early 2023. Jody Thomas told a parliamentary committee this evening that deputy ministers are meeting to discuss the prospective demonstration for the first time this week. Here's more from Emily Joveski.
James Botter, the founder of the Canada Unity Group and one of the original organizers of the protests that gridlocked downtown Ottawa for weeks last winter, is calling for a second round next February. Botter posted on Facebook that he wants supporters to mark their calendars for a 4-day olive branch edition of the convoy.
Now, Ottawa police have responded to the possibility of another convoy, saying that they are aware of information posted to social media channels. They say they will continually monitor for upcoming events, protests, and demonstrations that may impact the city. And once it's identified, police will accordingly plan in collaborative manner with city partners and other agencies. City News time, 12:02. Now, taking a look at your weather, let's get the latest from City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll climb to a guaranteed high 4 degrees today. The average high is 0 and quite mild overnight. The low near +1. The average low is -8 and very mild on Saturday, all the way up to 8 degrees, but a gusty southwest wind. And we will have on and off rain through the day Saturday. Sunday looks good though. Sun and cloud just cooler at 0. For today, the guaranteed high +4.
Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy and 2 degrees. Premier Ford was in Clarington for an electricity-related announcement today. Here's City's Richard Southern with more.
Well, the province is facing a major energy crunch, and with that in mind, the Premier took to the mic today to announce that a new small modular reactor will be built at the Darlington nuclear site.
Once online, this SMR will boost the capacity of the Darlington station by 300 megawatts. That's enough electricity to power 300,000 homes.
The question was asked, though, will this do anything to reduce my hydro bill? And even though the government is in its second mandate, Energy Minister Todd Smith was quick to blame the prior Liberal government when asked about cost.
Well, we are making sure that electricity rates remain stable. What we saw under the long-term electricity plan from the Liberal government was increases.
The new reactor at Darlington will be the first built in Ontario in a generation. Richard Southern, City News.
Now, the Snowsuit Fund is still ongoing and you can still donate. You can do so by texting the word money to 555-555 and you will get a link to donate. Snowsuit Fund Chair Danny Kingsbury says the 50-50 draw is now the pinnacle of their fundraising year.
The Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign happened again in September. It happens every year, and that raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars while we, sold chocolate chip cookies with smiles on them for a week. And then obviously, I think it was last week with the Bigs and Bar Brew. That's another, up to $8,000 donated.
Now, the winner will get half the jackpot, which currently sits at over $59,000. The other half will go towards snowsuits for kids in the Ottawa area who need them the most. I'm Perushka Gopalkista for news anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime, everybody. I look forward to this segment every single day. It is Lunch with Sam, where we feast on those news stories of the day. We invite different community leaders, business leaders, journalists in to have lunch with us. And today, Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor with the Ottawa Citizen, has pulled up a chair. Hi, Christina.
Hi there.
And we've invited to lunch today Walter Robinson, former City of Ottawa executive and political commentator. Thanks for joining us, Walter.
Thanks, Sam. What's for lunch?
Well, I got to tell you, let's have a little LRT today for lunch. Walter, this has been an incredible week. Let's just put it that way. Lots of changes at City Hall, as we know. What did you think when you first took a look even at the executive summary of the LRT report? What were your first thoughts?
Well, the emojis that I put on my Twitter account, it was the poop show of all poop shows, if I can say that. But I'm shocked in the context of issues that are here. I've never seen a report like this, and in my years being an advocate in Taxpayers Federation years ago, I saw some pretty tough auditors general reports at federal and provincial levels. This is damning. This is damning in a couple of ways. It's damning in the context of just the contract awarding and administration. It is damning in the context of the conduct of the mayor, the former city managers, which gets to, and I know Christina's been writing about this, a culture of secrecy, which goes deeper than the Ottawa LRT. It's a city hall issue, and I would even expand this. This is endemic across governments. We've seen this as well in the area of the Public Order Emergency Commission. Don't want to talk about that, but there are some parallels. And I think also as well that we have another issue in the context of politics and governance and administration, is that politics has become a career, not a service. A game as opposed to a calling. And I think when we've lost sight, and I think some of the people in power have lost sight, is they're playing with billions of public dollars, and they're playing with people's lives. And I don't say that lightly. I believe there's a lot of stuff still to be uncovered. And I was at Queen's Park on Wednesday on another unrelated file, and I can tell you, I think there's probably people sniffing around Phase 2. I don't think we've seen the last of inquiries or provincial oversight into the conduct and contracting activities of the City of Ottawa with respect to LRT specifically, and perhaps Lansdowne or other issues.
Well, lots in that for sure, and lots of good points there, especially regarding Phase 2. Christina Spencer, I know this date, November 30th on Wednesday, was circled on your calendar. We were waiting for this LRT inquiry report for months. The timing of the report was really interesting. How did you first take a dive into it, Christina?
Well, first, can I just say I really enjoy listening to Walter Robinson, and I'd like to just sit here for the next 20 minutes or so and just listen to him talk. Is that okay? All right. Wednesday, actually, I was teaching a journalism class, and we wrapped up before 11 o'clock so that people could watch the press conference, which was deceptively boring until you sort of got into the report itself and saw everything Walter's just talking about right now. Vivid language, I'm going to say very clearly explained. Some of these things can be quite technical, and yet plowed through that report for the remainder of the day and well into the evening, and found that a layperson who's interested in this topic could follow this. So it was written quite deliberately, and I think that's where much of its power comes from, is that, normal people, if they are interested in this issue, can follow this, through the safety issues that are laid out and the 20 recommendations on that, through the contract discussion, through the entire sort of narrative and description about what city officials and the former mayor did. And that, I think, lends a lot of power. So when he gets to his conclusions and he talks about egregious behavior and he talks about deliberate malfeasance and he uses words like outright misrepresentation, you see where it's coming from. And so I think that really puts the power behind it. Now, he's not any kinder to the Rideau Transit Group or to RTM about this, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as well, right? The private sector partners here did not cover themselves in glory. They had, very, very poor communications among themselves, never mind getting to the city point, right, where the city kind of blows it. So we've got this going on all the way through the system from all of the partners, and it can only add up to the disaster that it became.
It really did. And what I love, and you brought up a really good point, Christina, about the report is there is a one-page media release that would be something, certain residents, they would only have time for something like that. Certain residents would have time for maybe the executive summary, which is a little bit more in depth. And then there's over 600 pages there for people that really want to, that really want to take a deep dive. There's a lot of great points brought up by both of you. Let's talk about the timing of this. I mean, this could have been released before the election. Do you think it would have changed the election, Walter?
I think it could have changed the election in the context of helping the current mayor Mark Sutcliffe in terms of I'm an outsider. Look at what everybody has been at the table, including my main opponent, Catherine McKenney, and what they did or did not do. I think the timing as well is just, if you look at the 600 pages, I've read the executive summary. I'm getting into the report. I've scanned all 600 pages. I've not read them. That's my weekend reading. That's what I do for fun on weekends.
Right.
Yeah, but and I think the timing is what it was, and it would be very tough to come before and after. But everybody knew, based on what you heard and what you saw, that we've chatted about this before, when you have changes of government lots of times from one partisan color to another, or a different administration at a municipal level, there's usually a big bag of stinky stuff left somewhere. This is the big bag of stinky stuff that is left square on the mayor and the new council's desk. And then above everything else you have in terms of budget concerns and the city's debt and a variety of other things, there's issues of trust, and they're not going to be. I took the LRT. I joked this morning. I was going to the Christmas cheer breakfast. Will it get me there? It was 2 stations. I had more engagement on that tweet than I had on other things, or cute dogs doing things down the hill on a sled. So there's real interest here, and this is a defining city issue and a pivotal moment for the mayor and council to figure out how to rebuild trust, one train trip at a time, one decision at a time. And I believe one of the most important things coming out of this report is this appointment of an independent oversight or monitor. You have to have a chaperone or a babysitter to do this, but that's the level of trust, and that's what this outside inquiry and the justice has said. That's going to take time. So I'm fascinated to see where this goes, because especially at the engineering level and the wheels and the tracks, those problems are still there. These trains are not running at full speed. So we have some real issues to take care of.
We absolutely do, and lots of good information there as well in terms of this report. Let me ask you, Christina, do we think that these recommendations will actually be implemented? There's 103 of them. Where do they even start with that?
I think that there will be honest efforts to kind of prioritize them and get them going. Mm-hmm. Can I come back to something that Walter said? He was talking about phase 2 of LRT, and the province and others sniffing around at that, which makes total sense. And you'll remember that big council meeting where Diane Deans and others were very upset because they hadn't found out about testing criteria and so on for the proponent who won that bid. And not testing criteria, but criteria, quality and financial.
The technical criteria that they did not meet.
That's the word I'm looking for. But one of the things that this council can do immediately, and the mayor, is say, let's not only be open about phase 2, but let's do kind of a public review of where we stand on that, and let people know, precisely the state of affairs as we continue to dig and build that phase of the whole thing. In other words, get ahead of it by getting ahead of it, if you know what I mean. Sure. They can put that out there right now, and they can obviously pledge openness on it, but then show it. Even have special council meetings or other briefings for the public, for anyone who's interested, on precisely what's going on with that construction. That would be helpful to them, I think, because it would at least signal, and it would signal to their 2 big funders, the 2 other levels of government, that we are getting our stuff together on this, and it will be a slow process. And I mean, anyone who says it'll be fast, that can't happen, obviously.
Absolutely. We're going to come back.
Could I bring up one other thing?
Of course.
Sorry. One of the other, I'm not going to say dangers, but it is a bit of a danger with this. It's really fundamental that we get the LRT right and that we deal with all of this. And it will be a huge laser-like focus for this council now. But one of the issues it raises, one of the challenges it raises, is neglecting the rest of the system as we focus on this. Sutcliffe and his opponent, McKenney, both talked as well about the bus system, how dysfunctional it is, how it's not working, no one's getting anywhere, right, because of our, whole difference in work patterns and everything else now. These things may very well kind of get dumped out of the spotlight and dumped to the side because you've only got so much capacity to deal with crisis. And yet, everyone who takes transit in Ottawa knows that this has to get fixed, too. It's just part of people's daily lives. So, one worries a little bit about sort of the shift of resources all into dealing with the crisis immediately and not dealing with these other very practical daily concerns that people have, too. I don't know how they're going to manage to do all of that stuff, but they're going to have to.
Excellent point for sure. We're going to leave it there. We're going to come back after the break and feast on a few more hot topics this week here on City News. We're going to return with Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen, and Walter Robinson, former City of Ottawa executive and political commentator. Come on back, everybody, to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
So, this organ, which I regret I cannot name because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school.
Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
What is it?
Anxiety disorder.
Depression.
Clear.
PTSD. 1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds and bring hope to those in need.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime. We're feasting on those big topics of the day, those news stories that everyone's talking about. We're talking about them today with Christina Spencer, editorial pages editor with the Ottawa Citizen, and Walter Robinson, former City of Ottawa executive and political commentator. On the topic of big news stories, we know, of course, the so-called Freedom Convoy was a very big news story this year. We're hearing, Christina, that the so-called Freedom Convoy 2.0 may be returning. We heard from Ottawa Police that they're aware of it on social media channels, and they will be working with community partners. What are your thoughts?
This is the version that's supposed to be the hug everybody version, right? The friendly version. Coming back in February, says James Botter, the guy who's trying to organize it. Supposedly a 4-day event, and yes, they'll leave town, they say. So it's very, it'll be very emotionally troubling, I think, for Ottawans. Obviously, people have the right to protest, and if protesters want to come to town, bring it on. That's what we do in Ottawa. If police and the city and everyone else is not prepared to ensure that the law is followed, though, then we will have a real problem. I mean, I can't imagine anyone is going to let a bunch of trucks back downtown. I think that will not happen. I certainly hope that it won't happen. So the question then will be, just ensuring that whatever protest takes place is peaceful, that it doesn't infringe on other people's rights, and that these people have the right to protest. Hopefully the action plan is underway. I think Jody Thomas, the PM's security advisor, said that there have been meetings on this, at the federal level at least, to start planning for it. So, fingers crossed, basically.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, planning at the federal level, obviously planning at the municipal level and the police level. The lack of collaboration we're certainly seeing through the Emergencies Act inquiry, Walter. We're seeing, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing in many ways. That has to be solved this time, I would think, if they're coming back.
I believe you'll see an integrated command table that is much more fluid and much more collaborative, and knowing who does what and who has jurisdiction where and where the handoffs need to occur. I don't want to chuckle at this because I now live closer to downtown, but it's kind of like the sequels. They're never usually as good or as big as the original, unless it's the Star Wars or the Hobbit or Lord of the Rings franchise. And so if they're coming for 3 or 4 days, everybody has the right to protest. But protest peacefully, protest in the context of where you're allowed to protest. There are certain areas that are off limits. And if it does happen, I believe it will be a non-event, and that's what a good protest should be, a non-event. And we live in Ottawa. Protests are inconveniencing. I know lots of times when I've seen organized labor with marches and stuff. I don't like it. I may not agree, but it's their right to protest, and I'll defend it to my dying breath for them to do that. So we could be inconvenienced, but not held hostage or not insulted or not live in a state of fear. That's the most important thing. Also the oxygen. We're in a different space. We are evolving to an endemic situation. And people on all sides are just tired. I was at this breakfast this morning. People are just tired of it and want to find that next normal as we're struggling to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how many people show up. Bouncy castles and hot tubs, I think we can just say, no, that's not happening. We're not going to encourage a KOA kind of atmosphere in the middle of February. Wellington is still closed. So where are you going to go? Where are they going to be directed to have visibility to the seat of power and a place where you can protest, that a protest can be supported but also contained?
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Obviously, I think I spoke with a number of people in the last number of weeks. I mean, that downtown core where the convoy was, hasn't healed in many ways. There's still a lot of discussion about how challenging it was. We know that Wellington area is still blocked off. It really does take away from the city, I think. Christina, would you agree?
I would, and I'm frustrated, as many residents are. I think that there is no plan yet for Wellington Street and for what should happen to Wellington Street going forward. In terms of the residents, who many of whom are still very upset about this, of course, we have the lower-profile Ottawa People's Commission that has been hearing from them over the past couple of months, and I think they have a few hearings this month, and I think they wrap up on the 10th of December. Just getting people's stories from what happened or how they perceived things around them. I would be very interested, to see what their sort of summary of all that looks like, because we've had these big, high-profile, the Parliamentary Committee, the big the Public Order Emergencies Commission. These are really helpful in telling us all about what was going on behind the scenes, or not, among the people who are supposed to protect everyone. But hearing more from actual people themselves, I will be very interested to hear that and see what lessons can be taken from it, and taken from it back up to these authorities and these people at higher levels. So Wellington itself, we need a plan for that. Are we just going to sit there with bollards, blocking off the street forever? That's very Ottawa to do that. It'll take us forever to figure something out because everyone wants to make sure they are politically protected before we come up with a plan. But really, let's get on this.
Mm-hmm. The word that has come to my mind in the last number of weeks and months really is the word trust. And ironically, I'm moving this weekend, Walter, and, God bless me, it's going to be something to move. But as I was taking books off my shelf and putting them into boxes, I came across a book by the name of Trust, written by the former Governor General, the Honorable David Johnson. And, I often flip through that book when it comes to trust because I think there's a lot of good life lessons in there. Where does this city, this province, and this country stand when it comes to trust? Because it just seems every level of government has done something that doesn't deserve our trust.
Well, you need to start with a basis of facts. If you cannot agree on the facts, then we cannot get to a level of trust in the debate, and then we cannot have truth in our institutions. I forget who, the Nobel Prize winner for peace, who kind of talked about that. It's not my kind of soliloquy at all, but I think that's where we are, and what we also have in our politics is people on the right and on the ultra-woke left who are, Nick Nanos wrote a great book on this, who have an outsized voice compared to their influence, and we have polarized. And I come back to my earlier point where public service and politics has become a game, not a service, and it's now a career for many. And I think the other thing that we could talk about for another time is in this trust dynamic, especially at the federal level, we have this Westminster model where we can move deputy ministers around and assistant deputy ministers, and they can be the business of government in a variety of different departments. Well, in the context of the 21st century, perhaps you need less generalists and more people who understand the discipline of healthcare and science, the proper public security and public order. We need to think about how we empower our public servants, who are the machinery of government. They are the permanent. The bureaucracy is permanent. The politicians come and go, to make sure that they are the best equipped to make these decisions, which fall to them more and more often, even in the context of public planning and transportation planning at the city level, that people have the right amount of skill to do those jobs. I think that's where we start within, especially a town that is the public service, that we have those people with all those skill sets that we rely upon to do the things day in and day out when the Parliament or the City Council is not sitting.
Sadly, we only have about 30 seconds. Christina, comment on trust for me.
Transparency. That would be my first word. Governments are not trusted because they are not transparent, because they're about message control and owning the narratives. They have to be transparent. It's our money. And as a journalist, how frustrating it is to just try and get a simple fact out of any level of government. So until government is transparent, we will not be able to rebuild that relationship.
That's a perfect way to end our time together today. Thanks for coming to lunch, you two. I appreciate it.
And if I can just say amen to what Christina said.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now I'm going to go from LRT to a BLT.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Christina Spencer joining us, Editorial Pages editor for the Ottawa Citizen, and joining us, Walter Robinson, former City of Ottawa executive and political commentator. Coming up next is the business lunch. The first half of the business lunch, we're going to talk about some of those businesses that you may want to visit over this holiday season. And then just after about maybe 12:45, 12:46, Mike Schreiner's going to be here, the leader of the Green Party here in Ontario, and of course an MPP in Guelph. We're going to be talking about Bill 124. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hey, I'm Ash Ravens. I'm a singer-songwriter in Ottawa, Canada. I'm performing this week on Encore Ottawa 3, so please be sure to tune in and hope you enjoy it.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Join us on the next Simply Cooking by Chef, where I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'll make it right before your eyes. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Friday, December 2nd. Good afternoon. I'm Pirushka Gopalkista. Right now, in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, partly cloudy and 2 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is encouraging Federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault to do his research. He says that he's very worried that Ford is opening up parts of the protected Greenbelt so that 50,000 homes can be built, and he warns that Ottawa will not provide compensation if a province allows building in areas prone to flooding. Now, here at home, the largest single-day annual food drive will get underway this weekend. Tomorrow is the 38th annual OC Transpo Food Drive, which gives back to the Ottawa Food Bank. The drive is in collaboration with Loblaws, and you can donate non-perishable items outside select grocery stores. Now, you can also make a direct donation through the Ottawa Food Bank. The Ottawa Red Blacks has a new coach. Bob Dice has been tapped as the 3rd coach in all of the team's history. He was the Red Blacks coordinator since 2016 before taking on interim head coach. And police are currently on scene at the Les Cité campuses following a threat this morning. The college said in a statement that both the Ottawa and the Orleans campuses are in security mode, meaning that no one can exit and enter the buildings. Police say they were called to the 800 block of Aviation Parkway this morning and are still on scene. They're urging those on the campuses to remain calm. Now, more information will become available later today. City News Time, 12:32. I'm Pirushka Gopalkista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, it's the business lunch here on City News, and just because it's a business lunch doesn't mean we can't have something sweet. We wanted to head all the way to Merrickville and speak with Erin from Pickle and Myrrh. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Erin, it's so great to get connected with you. I know we spoke with Erin Kerrigan last year and talked all about those sweet, sweet caramels. My favorite. I gave them away here as a gift to all my colleagues at City News, and I'm still hearing about how popular that was.
Yay! Oh, I'm so glad to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a little bit about your story, Erin.
Oh, my goodness. Well, this is our second Christmas being open in our cute little quaint village of Merrickville, and things have changed drastically for us. Last year, we were a new business and really struggling to keep up. We were hand wrapping all of our caramels. And this year, we have a vintage 1920 candy wrapping machine, and so we're able to keep up. So it's a whole different Christmas season for us. No one leaves our shop disappointed. Everyone can get whatever flavor of handmade caramel they want, and our fingers no longer have carpal tunnel.
There you go. I love that. I love that. So my favorite, can I just tell everyone my favorite?
Yes.
Do you remember my favorite?
Is it the sea salt?
Sea salt, absolutely
Yes,
the best.
That's everybody's favorite. We actually make 10 to 1 of the sea salt to any other flavor we do. The second most popular is our maple caramel. And I think that's indicative of the region that we live in. And being true Canadians, everyone loves a good maple, a good maple product on the menu, right?
For sure, for sure. So take me back. Your story is lovely. Share with everybody today your story about how you came to make caramels.
Well, we started in a small general store in Water Valley, Alberta, and the store was going under, and it no longer carried bread and butter and things that we really needed out in this little hamlet. And I was off on mat leave, and one of the moms said to me, "Oh, Erin, you should take over the general store." And I thought, no, that's silly. And the next day I had the owners over for coffee, and they said, yeah, I could take over, about 600 square feet of the general store. So it was just going to be something I did for a little bit of the summer, just as a fun little pass the time with my girlfriend. And my daughter's name's Willow, and her nickname's always been Will Pickle, like dill pickle, so we just call her Pickle. And my girlfriend that I started it with, she's Scottish, and her daughter's name is Murrin, and her nickname is Mur. So we decided to name our little company Pickle and Mur, and we just sold artisan goodies, and we did a little bit of baking. It had nothing to do with caramels at the time, but within about 4 weeks, my girlfriend that I started it with decided to go camping for the rest of the summer, and so I bought her out of the business. And then I made caramels one time just for fun, just to hand out for free with anyone that came up to the counter that day. And more people were coming back saying, "Oh, you got to make these caramels. You got to make these caramels." And then all of a sudden I was on the news one morning talking about my caramels, and the business kind of blew up from there, and William Sonoma asked me to come in and do demonstrations of making caramel, and now all of a sudden I have a little caramel shop in Marrickville, Ontario that's getting some traction for our delicious handmade caramels.
See, I love the product and I love the story. You put the two together and it's perfection. And I've got from a very good source that Santa loves putting Pickle and Mur caramels in stockings. So that's
so true.
A great idea. Absolutely. I love that so much. Lots of things happening in Marrickville. It really is the most picturesque place to head this time of year, and not only do a little bit of shopping, but a little bit, it's a little nostalgic when you're there. You feel like you're in the middle of a Hallmark movie.
It's so true. It's so funny. I was just telling your producer when he called me, and he was asking me how my morning's going. Actually, tomorrow is Christmas in Marrickville, and so that's the biggest day of the year, especially for all of these handmade small boutique shops and businesses. We see tons of tourists and visitors come to our little village. We have a Santa Claus parade. We have a vendor's market. There's burn barrels where kids can roast hot dogs. You can meet Santa and Mrs. Claus and get your pictures taken with them, as well as Elsa is going to be here. And I was just telling him this morning we woke up to one of the power poles downtown being taken out by a vehicle in the wee early hours of the morning, and Marrickville has been without power most of the day, and it still hasn't been restored. Luckily, our little caramel shop is highly favored and highly blessed by Santa, and we do have power, so we're very thankful.
Good news.
But it's the making of a Hallmark movie. Will this little village be able to get their power back on and have a Christmas miracle happen for all the visitors coming to have pancake breakfast with Santa Claus tomorrow morning?
I have faith. They're going to be powered by sweet caramels from your shop.
Yes,
so
yes.
I have
Allegedly, power's supposed to come back on by around 1:30. So
Good.
Fingers crossed.
Well, we're sending positive vibes to everybody in Marrickville, and positive vibes for a very busy Christmas season. Erin Kurgan joining us, of course, from Pickle and Mur and those beautiful caramels. We're going to head all the way to beautiful Elmont and spend time with the one and only Emily Arbor. How are you, Emily?
I'm doing so great, and I've had those caramels, and they're amazing.
Of course they are. They're amazing. And of course, you're also supporting small business. You're going to visit Erin in Marrickville, and everybody comes to visit you in Elmont at Cheerfully Made. How's everything going at Cheerfully Made?
Things are really looking up, Sam. We've been in some construction here downtown Elmont, but tonight is Light Up the Night in Elmont, so many of the shops are open late. We have fireworks. We have Wayne Rostad taking the stage tonight, and the construction has wrapped up in time for it, so it's looking amazing. I feel like I can breathe again.
Well, it's true because I think the last 2 years, I think I spoke to you in 2020 around this time. I spoke to you in 2021. Now we find ourselves in 2022. And, you know, the business of what you do has definitely taken a hit, but you just haven't stopped, Emily. You've been creative in keeping going.
Thank you for noticing.
I really have, though. I really have.
It's really nice. And I can really relate to all those people in Merrickville too. It's been a real challenge. It does feel like we're getting, close to some kind of finish line, like some new normal, but a normal nonetheless. And this actually, the reason that we're talking today is because I'm finally hosting our annual holiday market in person again for the first time.
So exciting.
Since 2019. And it's just my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite tradition. Takes place at my old stomping grounds, the Almont Old Town Hall, next weekend. And I am just, it's a feeling I haven't had before, to be honest. I'm so grateful that I get to do this again.
For sure. And for those that aren't familiar with Cheerfully Made and what's going to be happening on December 10th and 11th, give us a sense of what that means.
Well, Cheerfully Made all started off as just a little craft show at the town hall in 2010, and every Christmas since then, we've brought together a different group of local makers. A few come from as far as Toronto and Montreal, but really it's mostly local makers. We fill the Almont Old Town Hall beautiful historic auditorium with just a variety of handmade goods, just highly curated stuff, because we get so many applications now. It's not your grandma's church basement craft market. There's nothing wrong with those, but this is a little better than that. And this year we have different makers both days. The show takes place at the Almont Town Hall, which is 14 Bridge Street here in Almont, between noon and 5, so it's a little different. Normally we would start at 10, but due to some limitations with the venue, we're doing from noon until 5 both days. And then on the Saturday night, we're also having a little ticketed event in the evening from 6 to 9, because we know that a lot of people don't want to battle crowds, want a little bit more space to shop and explore. And so we are also just selling tickets to keep that a limited event in the evening. During the day, it's just $5 at the door, no advance purchase. But if you want more details about that, you can find them on our website at cheerfullymade.com.
Well, we're using the business lunch as well to obviously put a spotlight on businesses like yours. And we just spoke with Erin Kurgan from Pickle and Myrrh. But Emily, let's inspire someone today if they're having a hard time finding different gifts for different people. They're trying to maybe, give gifts to the office colleagues, or maybe to a spouse or friends, sister-in-law, that kind of thing. Give us a couple of top tips. Cheerfully Made is also a retail shop, so we sort of are like a brick and mortar version of this craft market that I host annually. And so we get asked a lot, especially this time of year, for corporate gifts or gifts for that person who sort of has everything. And we have so many options because we carry so many locally made items. And so there's sort of a double purpose for shopping at stores like mine. And in a small town, you're supporting a small shop owner, but you're also supporting all of the small businesses that we support. Some of our best sellers are consumables this time of year. We carry Alicia Confections chocolate. She's a chocolate maker in Ottawa. That's not necessarily a specific gift to give, a specific person in your life. Everyone loves chocolate. Consumables like candles, or we have some beautiful shower steamers and things like that, sort of a lot of self-care stuff for men, women, and everyone in between. I love it. You have such a variety, and certainly a few people will be receiving a few things from me from Cheerfully Made as well.
You're so good to me, Sam.
I love it. I love it so much. And thank you so much, Emily, for joining us and inspiring us to visit the beautiful town of Almont.
Thank you.
Emily Arbor from Cheerfully Made. We spoke with a lot of different guests today. When we come back, we've done a recording earlier this morning with the leader of the Green Party of Ontario. Of course, that's Mike Schreiner, talking about Bill 124. We also take a deep dive into the LRT inquiry. You want to be here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
On Friday's Daytime Ottawa, we are going to share some simple and fun DIY holiday gift ideas. Well, by we, I mean Erin Rochon. She'll be joining us to share those ideas, as well as the Ottawa Food Bank has their big Goose concert coming up. It is one of their best fundraisers of the season. We'll share all the details with you on that, and we'll tell you about an upcoming performance with a 150-member choir.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Bipolar disorder.
Substance addiction. Bulimia. OCD. Wanna swap?
1 in 2. A flip of a coin. That's the same chance we'll experience a mental illness by the time we're 40. $1 a day can help change those odds.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thanks for joining us here on City News. A little bit earlier today, I had the opportunity to spend some time with Mike Schreiner, the Green Party leader here in Ontario and MPP for Guelph. We talked about it, a lot of different subjects, including the LRT and including Bill 124. We're going to play that for you now. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Oh, my pleasure to be on.
Well, there's certainly lots of news this week. It's been a very busy news week here at City News, and of course a very busy week as well for you. I'm going to start a little bit here in the Ottawa area. We know that LRT inquiry report was released this week. Have you had a chance to take a look at all, Mike?
Yeah, I've started looking into it, and I think it's very informative as the province looks at expanding LRT construction across the province, that we need to make sure that we avoid the mistakes that were made in Ottawa and ensure that we have fiscally responsible, reliable, and affordable LRT operating throughout the province.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the findings that really stood out for you in your role as leader of the Green Party?
Well, I think, the lack of making sure that the LRT construction was done in a way that could operate in cold climates was certainly something that really highlighted for me the importance of making sure we have processes in place that ensure that requirements are met that meet conditions in communities in Ontario.
Definitely important. And I know that that document was quite large. I think a lot of people this weekend will be taking even a deeper dive into it. Appreciate your thoughts close to home. Thinking about the province as a whole, Bill 124 has obviously been top of mind for so many. The Ford government, boy, they just won't give up on this one. Mike, give us a sense of what you're feeling about 124.
Well, I just want to say to the Premier, stop wasting taxpayer dollars on legal fights and don't appeal this bill, and just admit that Bill 124 was a mistake, and it's had devastating consequences on our healthcare system in particular. I mean, we've had so many nurses and other frontline healthcare workers either retire early or leave the profession, creating the health human resource crisis that we're facing that's just leading to the fact that so many emergency rooms are working reduced hours, sometimes closing altogether, the fact that our pediatric ICUs in particular are overwhelmed right now. And so much of that is due to a staffing crisis, and much of that is due to the fact that nurses and frontline healthcare workers feel disrespected, underpaid, overworked, and Bill 124 is a significant contributor to that.
And, you know, we're hearing Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones, a quote from her is, "Our plan is working." What do you think when you hear a quote like that?
Well, then I'd say it's a deeply flawed plan. I mean, if your plan is for emergency rooms to be closing, working reduced hours, if your plan is for pediatric ICUs to be overwhelmed, if your plan is that the healthcare system as a whole across the province is facing an unprecedented human resource crisis, then I'd say you have a flawed plan and you need to go back to the drawing board. And, Bill 124 isn't the only cause of the crisis we're facing, but it's a significant contributor to it. And I think the government would send an important signal to nurses and frontline healthcare workers if they say, hey, we're not going to appeal Bill 124. We're going to let this bill go into the dustbin of history, and we'll start negotiating with you fair wages, fair benefits, and better working conditions. I mean, the stress that nurses and frontline healthcare workers were facing pre-pandemic was growing and significant. During the pandemic, I mean, these folks did heroic work, and for the government to impose not only wage restraint on them, especially at a time, with high inflation, but also restraint on their benefits and so I think it just shows a level of disrespect, and that level of disrespect is affecting everybody in Ontario because it's limiting our access to high quality health care.
And, when I think about, I think about the endless conversations I've had with Dr. Doris Grinspan from the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. She's been calling this a crisis for years. We know that this came into effect in 2019, but the world has changed. Doris was worried about this in 2019. We've layered this pandemic on. I can't even imagine what it's like to be a nurse these days or a healthcare worker these days. Mike, what would you say to all the nurses in this province?
Well, I would just say to nurses, Premier Ford and Minister Jones may not be listening to you, but I'm certainly listening to you. I absolutely understand the very challenging working conditions you've been through, particularly during the pandemic. And, I want a government in Ontario that's going to show you the respect that you deserve, that's going to honor you as the frontline heroes that you are, and is going to negotiate fair wages, fair benefits, and better working conditions with you. And that's exactly why Bill 124 is a court ruling where, Doug Ford once again, experienced a significant loss in the courts, just needs to be clear with nurses. We are not going to appeal this bill because we respect you. We're going to send it to the dustbin of history, and we're actually going to sit down and start working with you to negotiate fair wages, fair benefits, and better working conditions.
Mike, can I take you back to June 2nd of this year when the provincial election, of course, that evening, the Ford government got a majority, obviously, had an opportunity to serve this province again. It was all about, you might recall the speech, all about the working folks. It just feels like this is opposite of that. And I would add in the education workers challenge as well recently. It just adds to me a little bit of spark to the fire in terms of the opposite of what was said on June 2nd.
Well, I mean, certainly the Ford government has been attacking working people since that June 2nd election. One, taking away workers' charter rights through the misuse and abuse of the notwithstanding clause when it came to the QP workers. And, fortunately, the Premier backed down after a week. And, I was just, really struck by how many parents, students, community members were coming out in support of, the QP education workers, which are the lowest paid workers in our schools. And then you have Bill 124. I think it's clear that the Ford government's no friend of working people, and working people are pushing back against the government. And I would say on a whole host of other issues that go beyond labor issues. I mean, investing in good public services, ensuring that we have a healthcare system that's there for when, people need it, ensuring that we have stability in our schools, because we know that our children need to overcome the learning gap they've experienced during the pandemic, making sure we actually put forward legislation that will build affordable homes in communities where working people want to live and close to where they work, so working people aren't forced into long, expensive commutes. So there's a whole host of issues that have been front and center in the legislature since the June 2nd election that I think are very detrimental to working people, and the Ontario Greens are going to continue to push back against that.
Mm-hmm. Are you frustrated by the Ford government right now in terms of Bill 124 and the fact that they are taking this to, going to potentially appeal this and really taking it to the next level? I also think about the monies invested to appeal this. I mean, it just seems, why not put that money back into healthcare?
Absolutely. I mean, the money the Ford government is spending on all these legal cases should be being invested in healthcare, and in particular supporting the people who run the healthcare system, who provide those frontline services, the people who directly care for us. And, I can't tell you how many times now has the Ford government lost in court. And I just want to continue to say to the Premier, stop wasting our money on legal battles and actually do your job. And one of those jobs is to ensure that our healthcare system has the adequate resources it needs to care for people, and that we invest in the people who deliver that care.
Thank you so much for your time today, Mike. I really appreciate it. Mike Schreiner joining us, of course, Ontario Greens leader and Guelph MPP. Thanks for spending time with us here on City News.
Been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.